We have a lot of options, and how do we know which is the best option? Because, I get these same questions like, okay, you have different levels of editing, and I go again, 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 those are basic, and for me it's right here. It's easy.
Right,
So I'm going to ask you, what's the best option for their
right,
book project in layman's terms?
right. So I think one of the key things is the first three that I mentioned, the DIY, the general contractor, and supported self-publishing, they differentiate themselves from traditional publishing in this way. As an author, you control the content and you control speed to market. And those are two very important things. When you decide to work with a traditional publisher, they may change the title of your book, they may change the cover, they may ask for another edit or another chapter. And so again, that's neither good nor bad. It's just a decision you have to make. And then a lot of times they will acquire a book, even if it's self-published or a manuscript. And I would suspect that if we talk to traditional publishers right now, they're working on books that they're going to put out in 2024.
Yeah,
Their 23 list is already done.
it's
So your
full.
book might not make it to the market to 2024, right? So that's important. So one of the things that I always say to authors is when you're trying to make your decision, be clear on this. What's your goal? What's your budget?
Mm,
And what time and talent can you bring to the project? And so as you think about those and you balance those, you can make the best decision. And what the two scariest things I ever hear from authors, and I've heard these more than once, is my goal is to reach every man, woman, and child on the planet. While I appreciate the aspiration, it's unrealistic. And the
right.
second thing that I hear that scares me is my daughter is an artist, because that almost
No.
always means the book cover is not going to be very good. And I've heard those and I've seen examples. So you want to set realistic goals about what you want to accomplish with your book. And one of the questions that I always enjoy asking authors is how many people would you have to impact with your book and reach with your book to make you feel like it was worth it? And in all the years I've been asking those questions, that question at all the different conferences I've gone to, no one's ever given me a number bigger than 100. The reality is that we would love to be a New York Times bestseller and all that, but most of us know that that's probably pretty far reaching, right?
Mm,
But the value of becoming an author is because you have the opportunity to impact lives of people that you may never meet, and that's such a great thing. So what I encourage people to do is write down what your goals are and write
mm,
down and be realistic about what time and talent. So I'm a writer, I've written books, I've written a lot of things. I don't have a problem writing a manuscript, but I'm not an editor. And this
mm,
book I'm working on right now, you'll appreciate this, Joella. This book I'm working on right now, we went through 20 versions of the manuscript before we even submitted it to an editor. I have a co-author. He's
mm,
never written a book before. We got it back from the editor. She just did a fabulous job. But it looked like if you didn't have context, you're just like, oh my gosh, I've just wasted all this time. So I had to explain that no, everything that she's doing it was just so good and so helpful. And the book is far better because of that. And some of it was punctuation and things, but some of it was suggestions like you could do this and make this. And so anyway, so I recognize that in myself. And we even had beta readers who were, English teachers and things like that, but it's not the same. And then second of all, I would never design my cover, because I would never do that. And so that's where I said you have to be realistic about your the time and talent that you can bring to something. And then your budget, right? Don't
mm,
don't sell a car or give blood or something. Like do what you can, because it is the best time to be an author. You can do things simply, and there
mm,
are resources that you can tap. And
mm,
one of the things that we do with the Author Learning Center, and this is where I love doing this with you because I think we share the same mission, that our goal is to educate people so that they can be confident that they're making the best decision. And so if you're realistic about your goals and
mm.
the time and talent you can bring to it, and then the budget you have, you can find solutions to do things that are really, really important. And most importantly, get your book out into the hands of readers. Because one of the things I always say is I don't know how many people you will impact if you publish your book, but I know how many you will if you don't. And the most important reason to publish your book is because you'll have the opportunity to impact people's lives. You might sell some books too, but that's not actually the most important reason. Hopefully that's helpful and clarifying for people.
Yeah, sure. And I love the fact that you're talking about, what is your purpose? Because, even as an editor, when you come in, that's our questions there, especially if you're working with nonfiction versus fiction. When you're doing fiction, you're telling a story, and we're looking at the story arc and the plot and the characters and scenes. But when you get into that nonfiction world, what is your purpose here? Is it your call to actions? Are you trying to use this as a lead generator? Are you trying to inspire, motivate, educate, whatever it may be? And are you speaking directly to them? So really, really, really always going back to that foundation of, why are you writing it and who are you writing it for? So that your editor and your author learning center is a community that allows you to discuss with others and understand better. Okay, am I really serving the reader? Am I really getting this through? And which method is going to get it in the hands of the people that I need to be on my list or whatever
Right.
that may be. So it's
So
very, very important.
yeah, so one of the joys I have is I said to speak at conferences and do things like this. And so, I talk to people that are across the whole spectrum of publishing experience and goals and stuff. And one of the things I always like to say is someone say, "Well, I'm just writing this for my family." And 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 I always say to them, there's no reason you should bore your family to death. Like even if you're just writing it to like they almost give themselves that as an excuse to write a bad book. And I'm like, no, you still need to get it edited. And there's no reason just because you think your audience is 20 people, why would you want to bore your grandkids? Like write the best book you possibly can and get it edited and even if it is for that, then that's your legacy. That's your there's a guy, Alan Jacobs, that I love his he said books have a long afterlife, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I just love that quote, right? Books have a
Mhm.
long afterlife because so even if you're on this podcast and you're thinking, well, I'm just writing this for a small audience, still, even if it's just your family, put the best book out there that you can. There's no reason to bore your family.